So we need to update where we left off last time. And there's another thing that we need to add in as well. We need a way to hold that planets array so that we can loop through and we can do recursion back to fetch all, keep utilizing and building upon that array object. So I'm going to pass in a blank array into fetch all, and then in here I have the value contained within planets. And we can get rid of the set timeout as this needs to be updated. A return of that, and we saw from before when we do a return, then we can move on to the next part of the promise. So that will give us an opportunity to continuously to return back those fetch requests. Is use fetch. And fetch, of course, is promise-based as well, using the URL and using then a function, the response that we're getting back from the fetch. And fetch, we're going to check to see if we've got response data. So we're going to be returning that back and then making use of response data. So just as we saw before, we were fetching data, we're going to do the same thing here where we're just doing a response of the JSON. And this is going to help us build. So we've got another promise in there, and this is, of course, great practice for all of these promises. So we're response data, and we're returning back the results as data from the response JSON. And I know we've got quite a few returns there, but it is important to get used to and get more familiar with working with promises, as you do need to have these returns in order to trigger the next part. So we want it to resolve back. And this is where that magic word resolve comes in to resolve back data. So let's see what happens. So when we hit press, you can see that we're actually just getting back all of the response data there under resolve. So resolve is our out of all these returns. And once we've got all of the data, then all we need to do is and resolve that. But we want to continue to build on this planets object, continue to extend on that. In the recursion can do this multiple times and we can continuously loop through. Just as we return back the array of objects, so within const planets, do this, and then we can do a resolve of the planets. So that's another option as well. And instead of resolving item or resolving the data, we can resolve planets, but we already have something called planets here. So we reuse that and then return back planet. You're going to see that now all of these objects are formatted, but we're still only getting those 10 results. So we want to do recursion and get the rest of the remaining results that are available. We're creating our map, but we don't have our planets that are being created. And you can also update this console log to output the planets as well. So we can do that in this step. And then coming up next, I'll show you how you can do the recursion, so that you actually get all of the content. So we're going to get all 61 entries instead of just the first 10 on the page. So that's still to come. And I did want to spend a little bit of time on this because this can get fairly confusing because we've got a number of promises in here. Fetch promise, the new promise. The way that fetch works is that when we return, then we move on to the next. So there are 3 different returns there. And then, of course, we're returning another return using map. So once this completes, then we're returning back this object information into planets. So I know quite a lot going on here. Do try this out within your own editor to become familiar with it, and you're going to be ready to move on to the next step where we do the completion of this, send in the URL, send in the next URL, send in and build up on planets before we finally resolve it. So that is still all yet to come. So go ahead and add this into your project.